Hello, and welcome to the Totally Schway podcast, a podcast about the DCAU and whatever the hell else I want it to be about. My name is Mary.
And my name is Luke.
So, do you want to start out today with some news? Do you have any news at all?
Do I have any... Well, DCAU news is what you're asking for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. There's a little tiny piece. Hot news. Hot news? That sounds a bit weird.
Piping hot news.
Yeah, fresh from the oven. So for those that collect Mondo's Batman the Animated Series action figures, you'll be delighted to know that their pre-orders are now live for the Bane action figure. And this figure is absolutely massive. He's 13.2 inches tall. It's absolutely colossal. I'm very excited. I don't have the room. We physically don't have the room for any more Mondo figures. But I'm just going to get them anyway, and we'll make do. It also doesn't help our situation, the fact that Mondo's black and white reissues of Batman, the Joker, and Mr. Freeze are coming out in June exclusively through Big Bad Toy Store. And I keep telling myself, you don't need this, you don't need this, you've already got the originals, you don't need this. And yet I find myself looking at the listing on Big Bad Toy Store with my finger hovering over the pre-order button.
As if you're already, as if it's hovering. You know you've probably already done it.
I haven't. It is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. They're like $200 each, and I just...
Oh, I thought you were talking about the McFarlane ones.
No, Mondo figures, the foot tall
Mondo
ones.
Figures. Okay.
Yeah.
This is what happens when I'm looking at posters instead of paying attention in Luke.
Mary's just sitting there going, la, 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 I don't care what husband says. He said something about toys, I don't care.
Oh, shush.
And to make matters worse, Lego are releasing a mini set of the Batmobile with Harley Quinn and Mr. Freeze and Batman on the 1st of June, and it costs $60 or £60 over here, and I have to get that as well. I've really got a problem. I've got such a terrible problem. I think that's all of the DCAU related news at the moment.
But let's just say, if it's in black and white, it's probably going to be a good thing for me, because that's kind of like what my decor is: gray, black, and white.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you guys something about our living room. When you walk in there, it looks grayscale sometimes. It looks like you've taken a picture in grayscale.
It looks like Vincent Price would live there, and he's building a man with scissor fingers.
Don't give away my secrets. Don't give away my secrets. But yeah, that's kind of like, so black and white statues would be good. But I say this, but Luke would never take them out of the box.
I might. It's just I don't feel like this is our forever home. And when I've got my forever home, I probably will. But I don't want to risk losing stuff when we move. Because do you remember when we first moved, we lost my Batman Forever Two-Face coin, and I'm grouchy about that.
Yeah. I do remember that. You bring it up every 6 months.
Yeah, I know. The thing that also fills me with anxiety about them is there's only 1,000 of each figure, so I kind of feel like, oh no, someone's going to buy them all. They probably aren't going to sell out straight away. They aren't. I just have to keep telling myself they're not going to sell out straight away. You can always get them later on, maybe one at a time rather than splurging on all of them at once. But this is what's running through my head now.
This is why you have a Mary in the relationship, and then you have a Luke in the relationship, because Mary will be like, no.
Mary will be like, we need to buy a new Dyson vacuum cleaner. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Spend all my money.
Yeah.
All right.
When the old one has not died yet. It was nearly dead, though. Let's be real. I think it had... It would run for 5 minutes. Anyways, we're getting off topic.
Massively off topic. So why don't we just get ahead and go on, I should say, and talk about the topic of this week's episode.
All right. So, this episode, we're going to talk about our favorite villains of the DCAU. So that can be from any of the DCAU programs. Some of us lean more toward a certain show than others. Mm-hmm. But yeah, do you want to go first?
Well, why don't we do what we normally do, where we do one at a time?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, cool. So I can go first. So I mean, everybody knows, because I've done videos about it, my favourite villain out of all of them is Two-Face. But we've already done a Two-Face episode 20 instead of this one, episode 22, and I'm still kicking myself for not thinking of that. So I'm going to try and talk about villains that I don't often talk about. And the first one I want to bring up, in no particular order, is Lobo.
We love Lobo.
Yeah, I used to read the Lobo comics when I was probably too young, because they're very immature, but they were quite gratuitous with the graphic violence, people getting decapitated and holes blown in them. And
Oh, fun.
yes. But I really enjoyed them. And so when Lobo appeared on Superman, the animated series, when I saw him in the title sequence of the very first episode, I gasped, I shrieked. I went, "Oh my God, that's Lobo! They're doing Lobo! I can't believe it!"
How old were you when it came out?
I would have been like 11.
Yeah, so
possibly.
You must have been so excited, because Lobo is not a character that, I don't even know if a lot of people know him nowadays.
No, I mean, technically Lobo isn't a Superman villain either. He first appeared in a comic called The Omega Men, and he was very different initially. He had like an orange and purple lycra jumpsuit. He looked a little bit like David Bowie in... what the hell was that music video? I want to say Ziggy Stardust, but I'm probably wrong. I'm not a David Bowie expert. My sister is, I'm not.
So instead of David Bowie, they went for
Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yeah.
So that's how his character evolved.
Yeah.
After a couple of appearances, he became more of a space biker bum, and he looked like he belonged in Motorhead.
Yeah.
And I really love what they do with Lobo. He's not in these shows enough, frankly. Mm-mm. I guess that means he doesn't get to outstay his welcome, because he is a bit one note. But he's very humorous, quite crude, and in The Main Man, that's the two-parter that he first appears in, they managed to get away with quite a lot of stuff that they wouldn't normally be able to do, because Lobo substitutes words like frag and... I don't know, what some other words he uses in that. Basically, they're substitute swear words.
Yeah.
But bastich. I don't know if they actually let him say bastich in the episode, because it sounds too much like bastard. But there's a really funny moment where Superman punches Lobo really hard, and he goes flying through the air. Smashes through Lex Luthor's office, and you can just hear Lobo going, "Main mangle, destroy, fragging, bastard." And he gets quieter as he enters into orbit, and Lex Luthor's just like, "Oh, fuck."
He really wanted to say, beep.
Yes. But I love The Main Man. I think it's a great episode. But yeah, anyway, Lobo, I think he's really cool. I like the fact that he makes a cameo appearance in another episode of Superman. I've forgotten the name of the episode now, but it features Maxima, and she's like an alien warrior queen that determines that Superman is like the ideal mate for her.
Oh yeah.
But he's not interested. And at the end of the episode, Lobo turns up, and she's like, And of course, who can forget his appearance in Justice League and Hereafter?
Yeah.
After Superman dies, and the Justice League is they're basically struggling to keep up with all of the criminals and the supervillains going wild because they know Superman's not there to stop them. Lobo turns up to offer his own brand of help, which he gets into a fight with Kalibak, Darkseid's son, and just pounds the tar out of him and beats him up with ruined cars. And it's funny because although the Justice League were reluctant to accept Lobo's help, they needed it. And when they realise that they need him, you can see they all become crestfallen and like, oh no.
Oh man.
But then, of course, Superman is not dead. He returns and sends Lobo packing. And,
yeah, of course.
And Lobo's just like, well, you ungrateful bastards.
Why do I sound like that?
I don't know. Something about Lobo brings it out of you, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I think Lobo's really cool. They don't do enough with him in the comics. They are releasing a big compendium of his ongoing series and some mini-series as well. When is that coming out? I think that's coming out in like May or June. I'm going to get that, even though I've got most of the issues. Because I like sending DC a message. Like, I will buy the things I'm interested in. Produce more of these things. So, that was my first one. Mary, let's go over to you for yours.
So I'm actually going to start out with Bizarro.
Okay.
I like Bizarro because, well, I think there's a theme in my favorite villains. They are beautiful losers. Isn't that a Monty Clift reference?
That is,
yes. They're beautiful losers. They are victims in their own right, except for one of them. And they have although they're not human, obviously because they're characters, they have a human edge to them, whereas you kind of feel sorry for them. And Bizarro is just one of those those characters. Do you want to tell them how Bizarro came about in the DCAU?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was cloned from Superman's DNA.
Yeah.
But
by Lex Luthor.
That's right. Yeah, and there wasn't just one clone. They had about a dozen of them, all in various states of development, and Bizarro was the first one to come out. And for a while he did look like Superman, and he thought he was Superman.
Yeah, that's something that I like about this character, because there's a whole story there. Like you could have like a whole like 3-part, because they loved the multi-part episode arcs in the Justice League. But the character of Bizarro could have had its own storyline. Bizarro really did think he was Superman.
Briefly.
Yes. And then he does... I don't know if he actually realizes that Lex was using him as much as he did. Do you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah.
I don't know if that character can actually... has the ability to actually recognize. And it's quite sad, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. They drew parallels with Frankenstein's monster with Bizarro, because much like Frankenstein's monster, Bizarro did not ask to exist.
No.
He was created through science, and when he didn't turn out the way they wanted him to, he was effectively cast aside. And he was just kind of left to his own devices and try and figure out his own place in the world.
Yeah.
A world he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And a world that doesn't understand him.
Exactly. I was going to say that. Again, this can go with all of the characters I'm going to talk about other than one. He's just understood because he can't even explain why he feels the way he does, because he wasn't, he doesn't have family. The only family that you could say he has would be Superman, but he's not Superman, so how could he go to Superman when he's... So yeah, that's why I like Bizarro. I didn't have as long as of an explanation as you did, but...
Almost.
Yeah, I really... And I sound a bit like an idiot sometimes,
No, you don't.
but
Cut that out.
I really like Bizarro because... there's another character that I'll probably talk about next, where I find not only is he a beautiful loser, he could be very sweet sometimes. Especially with, was it Crypto?
Yeah.
Yeah, with Crypto. Yeah, Bizarro. Who's your number 2?
Well, these are not in any particular order. I'm actually going to go off script because I wrote one down, but I'm not going to talk about them because they're a Batman villain, and I just said earlier that I'm not going to talk about Batman villains. I'm going to talk about Ace from the Royal Flush Gang. Oh,
I see. I want to mention this. I almost put the Royal Flush Gang as a whole in mine. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, which Royal Flush Gang were you talking about? Batman Beyond or the Justice League ones?
Justice League ones.
Oh, really? Oh, that's controversial. I thought they were rubbish apart from Ace. Ace she doesn't have a lot of personality, but she has a very tragic backstory in that as a child, she developed these weird psychic powers that could basically put people into comas.
Mm-hmm.
And she unintentionally did it to her parents. And so the government comes in and sweeps her away and takes her to a base that's isolated in the desert, along with some other special children with weird abilities. And they basically study her and train her to be a weapon. And one day the Joker breaks in to steal some stuff, and he finds this group of misfits,
Mm-hmm.
and he essentially adopts them. They are essentially his children. Ace and I can't remember the names of the characters. I don't even think Ace actually.
Jack?
Well, yeah, I know it's like Jack 10, King and Queen, but I don't think Ace actually was given a real name.
They don't say.
I don't think they did.
I don't remember.
Correct us in the comments.
Yeah.
But the sad thing about her is she's mostly mute. She can speak, but she just doesn't. She just kind of sits there looking glum. And the Joker tries to use her to drive anyone watching his TV show insane.
That has to be one of the best episodes. Because it shows how really messed up the Joker is.
Well, yes, because he's manipulating these talented children into furthering his aims, which, I mean, he just does things for the sake of doing it. You know, it's not like he's got any grand scheme. He just wants to cause chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And the Joker obviously manipulates her by saying to her, you know, he's the only one that she can trust. She should do what he says because he's just looking out for her best interests. But he has a power dampening device that the government had developed and kept on her. And he's keeping it in his pocket as a backup. And when she discovers, she drives him mad.
Mm-hmm.
Madder, I should say. But the main reason why I love Ace so much is from that final episode of Justice League Unlimited's first season epilogue.
Yeah.
And it's all that like 30 seconds. Ace has created a new Royal Flush Gang. Her powers are going into overdrive. She's making the world look different to people. It looks like a storybook kind of Alice in Wonderland style environment. And she's sat there in the middle of it, sitting on a swing back and forth. She doesn't realise this at the time, but she is going to die, and her powers are going into meltdown. And if she dies while the world is changed in such a way, it's going to cause massive damage for miles around. So Amanda Waller wants to send in a task force to kill her before that can happen. Batman steps in and says, nope, I'll deal with this. Give me the weapon. I will kill her. I'll talk her down first.
He was never going to do that.
No, of course he never would. He
was never going to do it.
No, and that's why Ace lets him in, because she
Yeah.
knows that. She can read his mind. She knows what's happening. She knows what will happen if she dies with her powers still active. And Batman just sits down with her, talks to her, and holds her hand. And she agrees to disable her powers, to return the world to normal, and then she dies.
Yeah.
And it's... I remember hearing Kevin Smith talking about this and going, every time I watch this episode, it makes me cry.
I'm getting a little bit like, ugh.
But yeah, it's entirely because of that episode, and specifically that scene, why I wanted to talk about Ace. I mean, there's not an awful lot to her, but she has a huge impact
Yeah.
across the DC animated universe. I mean, Batman even names his dog after her. So...
Allegedly.
Definitely.
Definitely. I would.
Yeah, 100%.
I would love a Doberman.
So, Mary, let's go to your next one.
Okay. My second one is Solomon Grundy. I love Solomon Grundy so much. I think, again, just like Bizarro, very misunderstood, does not know who he really is, other than, obviously, the rhyme, Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. But I also love the connection that he forms with Hawk Girl. I find that to be beautiful, because you have one of the superheroes, and then you have Solomon Grundy, who doesn't want to do good, but doesn't necessarily want to do bad, but just does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very unfortunate what we presume to happen to Mr. Grundy. But yeah, do you want to talk more about Grundy? I'm letting you talk about them more because you're a bit more articulate than I am when explaining like how these characters came about.
Well, it's mostly because of oh god, I can't remember the name of the episode now, but it's the two-parter where Dr. Fate takes Grundy and Aquaman and Hawkgirl and Wonder Woman and I think Superman as well to fight a Thanagarian like elder god that's coming through to our domain. And I mean, before that, Grundy was kind of a comical figure, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was the muscle, kind of similar to the Incredible Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
But in this episode, he's told his origins, how he was a gangster that was gunned down and his body dumped in a mystic swamp outside of Gotham. And decades later, he resurfaced as Solomon Grundy, but without his soul.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole motivation for Grundy assisting them in the rest of the episode is he wants his soul back.
Yeah.
And Grundy fights to the death with this elder god. He like beats his brains in, like he climbs inside of his skull and like starts pummeling on his brains.
Yeah.
And he gets killed by this massive beetle-like thing that impales him through the chest. And Hawkgirl gets her revenge and kills the elder god. But Grundy's laying there, isn't he? On his back, can't move. He's dying, and he looks at Hawkgirl and he says, "Do you think Grundy has a soul?"
Yeah, that's why I say what we presume to happen, because we don't. Obviously, in comic books and animated series and stuff like that, there could always be something else. We never know if when Solomon actually died, if he did regain his soul or not. But let's be honest, he probably didn't.
Well, yeah, as we see in his next appearance when he gets resurrected, and he's just like a savage, slavering beast. I mean, he still clearly has some recollection of his past life because he recognizes Superman and the rest of the Justice League.
Yeah.
And he clearly remembers his relationship with Hawkgirl because when he is badly wounded, he allows her to come close and she euthanizes him. Mm-hmm. He lets her do that. And that was another very sad episode. Why are we only talking about the sad ones?
To me, that's one of the most humane yet sad things that happened on that show, which makes it a bit human in a way. Yeah,
it does. Because Grundy, again, a bit like Bizarro, Grundy didn't ask to exist.
Neither did the other person I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. But yeah, he didn't ask to be resurrected, and
No.
he came back with just fury. I mean, I suppose you could read that as maybe Grundy, who he was reunited with his soul on the other side, and all that came back was this angry body.
Yeah.
I don't read it that way because he retains a lot of the memories of his past life. But it was very sad having to, have him be put down.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, that's it. It's so great that you have basically the two characters I've spoken about so far. You have these two characters that, in a way, don't have a ton of personality. Because Bizarro was made, and Solomon was resurrected, but not as the same person. As the same person, but not really.
Yeah, he didn't have any of his memories, any of his personality.
And just like Luke said, they didn't ask for those things. They probably would have been better off not, being brought to life in a sense, because, it sucks being in a world where you're misunderstood and you don't understand things. And you want to do good, but in a world where it's hard for you to know what's good and bad, just think about what these characters would go through. Like, who am I supposed to follow? And they end up following people that do bad things, that want them to do bad things, that use them. That's a theme among the characters that I've chosen. They get used.
So that seems like a good segue onto my next one, and that is actually one of the primary users of the DCAU, and that's Lex Luthor. Now, Lex Luthor, I think I'm going to do a video essay on this, and I've just decided that this is what the topic's going to be, and it's going to be about the way that Lex Luthor changes across the DC shows. It's going to tie into with a bigger topic about just how the whole world changes when Superman emerges. I'm not going to go into it too much here because I actually want you people to watch the videos. But when we first meet Lex Luthor, he is a shady businessman who is he violates the law by selling his battle armor, the most powerful weapon on Earth, apparently, to the Kasnians. Now, there's a trade embargo in place saying you cannot sell stuff to the Kasnians because they would use it in their illegal war. Luthor doesn't care about that. He just wants the $1 billion from selling it to them. So they stage a robbery where the suit is stolen and then shipped off to Kasnia. Of course, that in the real world, that kind of thing could probably happen quite easily. But in this world, Superman makes his appearance and makes himself known to the world, and he intervenes. And in a way, Superman's appearance completely changes the course of human trajectory. So rather than having industrialists like Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne and Oliver Queen, etc., making weapons and technology that would be used to harm other humans, they are investing all of their time and energy and effort into making technology that will allow them to keep up with Superman. Because Superman is so far ahead, and Superman even brings Kryptonian technology to Star Labs and allows them to study it, and that's going to, of course, advance human tech just through reverse engineering, I suppose. And you see with Lex Luthor, he, rather than building battlesuits and guns and drones, he starts investing his money in more unconventional weaponry. Things like Metallo, who I'm going to talk about later, spoilers. In fact, actually, the time this episode goes out, you'll know that Metallo is the subject of my next video essay. But Lex looks into using kryptonite as an alternate power source for some of his devices. He uses technology stolen from Brainiac to build more advanced machinery, as we see in World's Finest, the exploration drones, I suppose, as they are originally pitched in his collaboration with Wayne Enterprises. Luthor repurposes them as military weapons. And in the process, in this deal with Wayne Enterprises, Brainiac gets into Bruce Wayne's systems. And he shares Kryptonian technology with Bruce Wayne in order to build himself a ship to escape Earth. Now, of course, Brainiac kind of is famous for hoarding knowledge. Now, he only shares this knowledge with Bruce Wayne because he's going to kill him, and therefore he won't be able to, to pass that knowledge on. However, Superman intervenes, Bruce Wayne survives, and that's how you can go from, Bruce Wayne in Batman the Animated Series having like a cosmetic company and, building silicon chips maybe in Heart of Steel, to suddenly being able to build a massive space station that will house the Justice League.
So, okay, sidebar.
I know, I've rambled a lot there.
Sidebar. How the hell do people not know that Bruce Wayne is Batman by just that? Like, who else could afford it other than Lex Luthor?
Well, they not in the DC animated universe cartoons, but they explained it in the Batman comics as saying that Bruce Wayne was donating the equipment to the Justice League.
Oh, okay.
So they probably do something similar there. But to get back to Lex Luthor, he goes from in that first episode of being a shady businessman to now finding himself competing with Superman, someone who is so impossibly beyond him that he then starts investing and building these weird initiatives, and it has an effect on him, to the point that Lex Luthor goes from shady businessman to a full-blown actual super villain with like battle armor and kryptonite lasers, and he gets taken over by Brainiac, or I should say, I was going to say taken over, that's how it initially started, but then he talks Brainiac down into assimilating, so that rather than Brainiac being in control of Lex Luthor, the two equally share and become something else.
And only Lex could have done that.
Yeah. And Lex Luthor, by the end of Justice League, he's prancing around with the New Gods, and he learns the anti-life equation, this thing that Darkseid has been after for centuries. He figures it out, and he goes, here you go, Darkseid, here's the anti-life equation. Now let's go.
That's how gnarly he is. Like, it's just amazing that, someone like Brainiac, who destroys planets, is chalked down by a human.
Yeah, and you think about how Lex Luthor was before Superman came about. Yeah, okay, he built up Metropolis. Into the thriving city that it was, which...
Into a metropolis.
Yeah, like a literal metropolis, yeah. And that was ultimately a good thing. He was a bad man, but he did good things to line his own pocket. But I kind of feel like that his motivations weren't exclusively about finances. It's about...
Power?
It is about power as well, but it's also proving that he is the absolute best. It's a case of his ego.
Yeah.
He's like,
egotistical.
These slums in Metropolis, I'm going to clean them up. I'm going to give people good housing. Not out of the kindness of my heart, but just to show you that it is possible, that I can do it. This battle suit that should be put to use in battles. The government won't let me sell it. Fine. I'll just have someone steal it, and I'll get recompensated for it later on. This man in tights flying around, shooting things with his laser beams from his eyes, making me look small and weak. That's it. I'm going to build a robot that's going to kill him.
Hey, that's a good segue into my next person.
Is it?
Yeah.
You're right.
Let's go to my number 3.
All right, she's cut me off there. So you've talked about Lex Luthor enough.
No, because you were going to talk about that. I was going to let you finish talking about him.
No, go ahead.
So this is my number 3. Amazo. I like Amazo because Amazo, one of the things that I like about Amazo is the redemption. Because Amazo was made to kill Superman. Or to try to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would never have existed if Superman hadn't existed. There would be no reason to develop a machine like that.
Yeah. And by the end of it, and Luke's probably going to explain it a bit more in detail, but by the end of it, he does have, well, not he, I'm going to say they have a redemption arc. Because they are like, Lex, you used me. And instead of killing Lex, Amazo goes on and becomes gold. And he's like, you know what? I can do different things. I don't have to listen to you, Lex. I can be my own robot thing. And I don't have to do the things that you want me to do. I can come up with, different, solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was made because of Superman.
Yeah, he was.
And again, part of the theme, bar one of these things, I'm going to keep saying that until the last one, used. Very, very used. And not treated well, in my opinion. No. And then, in a way, thrown out.
Yes, yeah, he chose to leave Earth and find his own purpose. And he flew across the universe, learning as much as he could about anything. In a way, that's kind of like Brainiac, except without destroying everything he came across. And as you said, he came back with a new golden look.
Yeah.
But he kept coming back to Lex Luthor and his betrayal and the pain he caused him. Now, the thing I love about that Tabula Rasa episode is Amazo has got a very blank expression. Like, he has no face. He's got his eyes, and his eyes can kind of emote. And when he takes on the Martian Manhunter's powers to read people's minds, Manhunter says to him, "Why don't you read Lex Luthor's mind to see who's telling the truth?" And he looks a bit confused, and then there's this scowl on his face because he's done it. He's read Luthor's mind. It's so wonderfully emotive as he kind of arcs around and looks at Luthor and leans in with his... I'm trying to pull the face right now, but it's so... For such a blank expression, or a blank face, I should say, they're able to convey his emotions perfectly. So whoever drew the storyboards for that, well done.
I love the design of Amazo because it is very, like... I keep saying like today. Sorry about that. But it's very expressionless, like you mentioned. But you can still see what he's thinking. Like, I keep slapping my hand too. You can still tell what he's thinking because... you just do somehow, even though there's no mouth. I believe there's no mouth, right?
No mouth.
It's just his eyes, and he's just metallic, and you still know what he's thinking.
Yeah, it's his eyes and his body language that conveys what he's saying. And I have to say that the look of the cartoon version is so much better than the comic book original. The comic book original's like a shirtless, muscular, buff. He's got pointy ears and a little red hat and
like,
stripy green trousers and pixie boots. He looks ridiculous.
Like something you'd find in like He-Man or like Lord of the Rings or something.
Not even Lord of the Rings. Something you might find in He-Man, yes. I was going to say he looks like a jacked up Smurf.
No, I don't like the Smurfs.
No, me neither. Sorry, Alan Burnett. I know he wrote the Smurfs for a while.
I'm so sorry.
I know Alan doesn't listen to this, so it's fine. I can say what I like.
But yeah, that's one of the many things I like about Amazo. But it's mainly the fact that, in a way, there is a redemption there. Amazo becomes their own, and you don't often see that in cartoons. That someone has done wrong. And rather than just, going pew, 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 or whatever, you don't see the after with that. But with Amazo, I think you kind of do. You get to see that Amazo became their own
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You really did. So, my next one.
Oh, no. I'll come back half an hour.
No, I'm going to try to keep it short because I realise we're already at about 40 minutes and we tried to keep the episodes to about an hour. So for my next one, I'm actually going to go off script again because I wrote a list because Mary likes to prepare as much as we can. And as everybody knows, I detest planning stuff in advance and I always go off script. But anyway, so I'm actually going to go for a villain that only appeared in Batman Beyond once, and I'm going to go for the Earth Mover.
Oh.
Yes. Now, I love Earth Mover. I've talked about him loads in the past. Again, it's another tragic, sad villain that, following an industrial accident, he was buried underground and bathed in toxic chemicals. Everyone thought he was dead.
Yeah.
So he was left there, but he'd actually survived. And he then spent the next decade slowly rotting away and integrating into the soil. And in the meantime, his daughter was being raised by his business partner. Now, the whole time he's trapped underground in the dark by himself, he's obviously rotting away, going insane. And he finds that he's got the ability to control soil to a certain extent. So he constructs these mud golems that go up, and he wants to bring his daughter down into the underground and live with him, which is absolutely insane. What is a 16, 17-year-old girl going to do living underground in a cavern with her rotting corpse of a dad? Nothing. He should have let her go.
Wait, hold on. Have you ever been to Oklahoma?
Now, by the end of the episode, when Batman intervenes and the Earth Mover essentially he dies. He does die. I mean, you could argue that he was never alive anyway, but he ceases to exist, let's put it that way. But one of his final acts is to clear a blockage that allows Batman and his daughter and his business partner to escape. And I just love that episode so much. It's really, really creepy, quite disturbing, very tragic, very sad. It ticks all of my boxes.
It's the thing about Earth Mover for me is that he really is a villain. He only wants one thing, and that's his daughter, and he'll do anything to get to her, and stuff. But in the end, he lets the people that were in his way and his daughter, really, basically, essentially releases them.
Yeah.
And I find that quite poetic.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it is poetic. He put them in that situation, so I suppose it's only right that he lets them out of it.
But he realizes that that's not what his daughter would have wanted.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. And there's a really... I just keep thinking about the only thing on him that can move is his eyes. But his teeth are just gritted the whole time like this. And you can tell from the way I sound that it's not a very clear form of communication. So, he talks like this. He reminds me almost of Vincent Price and Dr. Phibes.
Yeah.
It's just such a love letter to old horror movies. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. That's something that I think the DCAU is really great at, is really tuning in to old Hollywood. And I'm not just talking about 40s and 50s. I'm talking about the 60s as well, because when you get into more of Justice League, you can see some of that 60s influence in that, especially with the type of humor that's in there. That's very, tongue-in-cheek, but still kid-like because of censors. And Earth Mover is... You could see Earth Mover. If they just did a movie called Earth Mover, that would, definitely, you could see that movie poster from like 1949. Black and white, very grainy, fog.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the next two go hand in hand, but all five of these really, I keep saying there's a theme to it, except for one of them. My next one is Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is probably my favorite character in any of the DCAU shows because of the story of Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn was made for BTAS. I love the storyline where she is, first a psychologist that is it psychiatrist or psychologist? I can't remember.
Psychiatrist?
Yeah, psychiatrist that, is working in Gotham, and then the Joker somehow gets his hands on her, or I should say gets his... He kind of like just uses her just like everybody else.
Yeah, he manipulates her.
Yeah. So he manipulates her, and she ends up being one of those souls that just needs somebody to tell her what to do. And obviously she's in love with the Joker, and
she thinks she is.
Yeah, she thinks she is. That's a big thing, is you don't know if she's actually in love with him. Like, you really don't know, because it's the manipulation of the Joker. I also love her humor. I love her design. I love the fact that she is a serious character, in my humble opinion. But I always feel like Harley is in on the joke. In a way, even if she doesn't realize it at first. If somebody's, talking about her or whatever, she'll be like, "Oh no, you're doing that," and then she will make it to where it's spun into something that could be funny, or she'll just kick your ass. I've always resonated with Harley Quinn because I don't know, even though I am in the place that I am in my life, I feel like I don't know where I belong in this world. And I think Harley Quinn, in a way, is one of those characters that is in the place that she is because she does not know really where she belongs in this world, in my opinion. And
she's looking for somewhere to belong.
Yeah. And for, I would say, I think, late 20s, early 30s, in terms of the age of Harley. That's kind of my age now. And even when I was 6 years old, seeing Harley Quinn for the first time, I was really amazed because I'm not a killer, and I'm not that funny, but I felt that there's a little bit of Harley in all of us in a way, because she's vulnerable. She's been very used and manipulated. And she was thrown away many times. But the thing about Harley is her loyalty. She always came back, whether that was reluctantly, willfully, or sometimes just because she didn't know where else to go. And I think in my younger life, luckily I have Luke now and I don't have to feel like that. In my younger life, before I moved here to where I live now, I did feel like that a lot, with like family and stuff. So Harley Quinn will always be my favorite, whether that's villain or not, because sometimes I see her as, the goodness that she can be, but we have to be honest and say she is a villain because she does bad things, whether that's because she's being manipulated or sometimes she just does bad things. Yeah, so Harley Quinn, what are your thoughts?
I like her. No, I think Harley's good. She's kind of a tragic villain in a different way.
Tragic. That's a word I was looking for.
Yeah, because she pins all of her hopes and dreams on the Joker, and he's never going to do what she wants him to.
No,
he's never going to marry her. They're never going to settle down and have kids. She's always going to come second place, actually more like fourth or fifth place in his list of priorities. But she still tries to win him over by doing everything he asks for. And it is sad. It is very sad. And there are people like that in relationships in the real world.
Yeah.
That's why it feels so sad. Okay, it's dressed up in this superhero or supervillain persona, I should say, with costumes and face paint and the likes, but still a very real thing.
But we all do that sometimes. We do wear our face paint, whether that's through how we're acting toward one another, or like me, I wear makeup. I put my mascara and my lip gloss on, and that's my war paint. I'm going outside. I have to put that on because I don't want people to actually see not necessarily the real me, but I don't want to feel vulnerable when I go outside. So you can, say that, we all wear our face paint and our costumes sometimes, but unfortunately most of us don't go out with hammers, mallets. It's more of a mallet, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Hitting things.
Speak for yourself.
So yeah. Again, I'm not very articulate today. I do apologize, but
that
that's
was perfectly
how
articulate.
I feel.
That's perfectly articulate.
And who is your final?
So I've gone off script again. I've changed my mind about who my final one I wanted to talk about. It's going to be Amanda Waller. Now, I know some of you out there are like, she's not a villain. What are you talking about?
She totally is.
And that's what makes her a good villain.
Yeah.
Is that her rationale is understandable. You can completely get why she does what she does. She is part of a covert military group. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have to announce to everyone what she's doing. Everything she's doing is classified, so she's not supposed to talk about it. But I would argue that some of her actions, such as creating the Ultimen, were incredibly villainous. It's very similar to Bizarro, except the Ultimen were created from scratch. They weren't based... Well, we don't know that they were based on anyone other than, the original characters from the Super Friends cartoon. But that doesn't exist in the DCAU. But they were clones with very short lifespans, and she just used them as she needed to. They were disposable objects for her.
Yeah.
But they demonstrated that they had thoughts and feelings and opinions and desires. They had everything that essentially made them human.
But she didn't
She
take that into consideration at all.
I think it probably popped into her mind, but she said, I don't care. That's not what they're for.
Yeah, but the choices that she made, they didn't.
Yeah. It doesn't matter to her.
Yeah.
They were weapons. It doesn't matter what they feel. And the same with Galatea. Was that her name, Galatea? I think it was. Basically Power Girl, the clone of Supergirl. She was treated as a weapon to use against Supergirl and Superman. But she had her own thoughts and dreams. She called Professor Hamilton her father, for God's sake. She gave him a hug and said, "Goodbye, Daddy," or something. And it took him by surprise. And Amanda Waller, of course, okay, she does come to see the need for the Justice League, particularly Batman, probably because he doesn't have any superpowers. I think she's got a bit of a problem with people with superpowers. But you see that she is responsible. I'm going to spoil epilogue here, by the way, for anyone that hasn't seen it. She is so committed to maintaining a Batman that she orchestrates the birth, I suppose, of Terry McGinnis, and tries to set him on the path to becoming Batman. And it's ironic that although her plan failed, really it succeeded on its own later on. And I know that there are those that really dislike epilogue because it undermines the message of Batman Beyond, that anyone could be Batman with the right attitude and support and, most importantly, money. And they treat it more as like Terry McGinnis's destiny. But I think the message from epilogue is slightly different. It's not so much that there's a destiny, you have to do this. It's that we all have our responsibilities and our obligations. But just because we have to do something doesn't mean that we have to do it in exactly the same way that had been done previously. There are other ways of doing things. You don't have to be a carbon copy of your parents. You are your own person with, your own unique thoughts and feelings and aspirations and hopes and dreams, etc. You don't have to be a carbon copy of your dad. You don't have to do everything that your dad did, Do what works for you.
Yeah.
Find your own happiness. Find your own path through life. And I kind of like that message.
I do too.
And I kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit, because how does this relate to Amanda Waller? Well, obviously she was the one that was responsible for it all. And I think I'm going to stop talking there, Mary. Any thoughts on Amanda Waller?
You can't see my notes, guys, but I have a special mentions bit, and Amanda Waller was in there. And I think if we talk about villains, we do have to talk about Amanda Waller, because she was a villain. I don't care what you think. She was a villain.
Yeah. The key point with villains is that they need to be understandable. You need to understand why they do the things they do. You might even agree with some of the things they do. But that doesn't change the fact that they're villainous.
Okay, shall we get to mine?
Yeah, last but no means least.
Yeah, the one that I kept saying all of mine have been used, abused, and la-di-da, except for one. And that one is the Joker. I'm not going to say I like the Joker, but he is one of my favorite villains because he can manipulate somebody to do anything he wants. He does not have good morals. And I wrote down, I did make a little note on the Joker, and I put, the Joker is the psychopath to rule them all. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Allegedly.
Yeah. And with the Joker, you see him doing these gnarly, out-of-this-world, violent things, and expecting certain results, but really not getting them all of the time, because a lot of the time he does get the results he wants. He instills fear, he causes humiliation, he takes over certain parts of the city for periods of time and all of that. But then, quite a lot of the time, he doesn't get what he wants because you have Batman, who is like, nah, mate, nah, we're not doing this today. I'm gonna stop you. And Batman does stop him, but the Joker obviously ends up hurting Batman in one of the worst ways possible by, having how can I not spoil it? Or just
say it.
Yeah. So basically the stuff that happens with Tim Drake, we can all blame the Joker for that. And that, causes Batman extreme pain. It causes more than just Batman extreme pain. But the Joker also uses Harley Quinn, another one of my favorites. And the way that he uses her, because we don't really see the Joker with another quote-unquote love interest, do we?
No.
But it is like this in real life, is you have this person that is using Harley for, let's be real, one thing and one thing only. And then that's it. Like, when she's not worth it anymore, that's it. Like, he wouldn't care. He would not actually care if Harley Quinn died or not. I don't think that character would be capable of actually loving Harley back. And sometimes you see that he kind of pretends, but he's always manipulating her. Like, he's never going to, like you said, he's never going to marry her. He's never going to settle down. And he's never going to be the, white picket fence clown. He's more of a couple access codes and 10 inches of steel thick kind of clown in Arkham. And a lot of people like the Joker because of the antics and everything. And that's well and good. But I don't like him necessarily because of how funny he is. I like him because he is one of the ultimate villains, in my opinion, because he doesn't have superpowers. Just like Batman, he doesn't have superpowers. He is just a freaking jerk. He really is. And I wrote another note on here. The Joker is a character you are amused by, but he also scares you. Because you know that if this was real life, you wouldn't want to walk in a room with this person, because they could be laughing and be like very cordial and funny and, hey guys, what's up? But probably he's either going to beat the shit out of you or he's going to use you in some way. And that is what scares me. Any thoughts?
I think you've summed it up quite well, Mary. Yeah. I think another reason why so many people like him is obviously the high quality of his performance from Mark Hamill's performance.
Yes.
Yeah. And obviously paired with Paul Dini's writing as well. I often think about the eulogy scene from The Man Who Killed Batman. As he starts out kindly, softly speaking, like, "Dearly beloved, we are all gathered here today, not to mourn the passing of Batman, but to blah, blah, blah." And he's gradually building the tension and becoming more frustrated and aggravated, and becomes quite heated towards Sidney. There's a line, something along the lines here of, who probably got lucky when Batman slipped on the trail of slime he left behind him.
I love the Joker's. I would put it as a transatlantic accent.
Yes. Mark Hamill said he took inspiration from Claude Rains in The Invisible Man.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ultimate villain other than Amanda Waller. But I do have some special mentions.
Do we have time? We are over an hour already.
I'm not going to go in depth about them,
okay,
but
go ahead.
You already mentioned one of them. I had Justice Lords, Amanda Waller, and Mercy Graves.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mentioned one of my honourable mentions earlier, and that was Two-Face, obviously. That would be my first choice. But I'm also going to give honourable mentions to Metallo and Brainiac. Because I think Superman's got some very good villains. Not as good as Batman's, but still some very good ones.
So yeah, shall we get to the comments?
All right, so let's go. First comment was from Lowell Lucas Jr. Hello again, Lowell Lucas Jr. How you doing?
Hello.
So Schway today. I'm glad to be here so early. Can't wait to hear the awesome. Funnily enough, I never got a BTAS figure when they were first released. The first one I did get myself was a mint-in card Man-Bat. Now, with all the Harley Quinn BTAS figure statues I own, you'd be surprised. Would you ever like us to send you photos of our BTAS collection? Also, yes, I agree. Today's toys suck unless you grab the more collectible adult-centric ones.
Oh yeah, you could definitely email. We'll put the email down in the description.
You're forgetting something.
And we have a Facebook as well.
Yeah, so
and an Instagram.
we did talk about this previously, and it turns out when I set it up, I left it as a private group, which is why no one could find it. It has now been made public, so you can join and share whatever you want in there, so long as it doesn't break the rules.
Yeah, but you could also, if you don't have Facebook, which a lot of us don't have Facebook, you could also email it to us or share it on Instagram with us. But yeah, I would love to see that because it's, like I said before, this is like a really great little community that we've kind of created here.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because like when Screenwiper sent us the pictures of Blue and Delta and all of them, I still go back and look at those because it's so wonderful. Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to upload them to, say, Instagram, just tag us in it, and Mary mans that account, so she'll see it and then she'll tell me.
Yeah.
He also says that you should watch Static and other great shows, maybe even Zeta Project. So there you go, Mary.
It is on the agenda for this summer now that I will be having more time to be able to do things like that and to just self-love, care, and appreciate.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe it might be worth doing a series on your channel, Mary, where you watch it and record your reactions, because you never watched Static Shock, you never watched the Zeta
No, I
Project.
didn't. That's an idea.
Something that could possibly be done, maybe. Who knows?
Who knows?
All right, next comment. We have David Carney. Hello, David. How are you doing?
David.
Says, hi, Mary and Luke. How did I know he was going to say that? Hope you both had a good week. It turns out that I don't own any DCAU figures yet. I had a lot of Funko Pops, which I got from the local comic shop, which range from Ghostbusters to Back to the Future. I got a Funko Pop Spike from Buffy off Tommy, who owned the local comic shop, for Christmas years ago, which I treasure as he passed away a few years ago. Keep up the great work.
The Funko Pops that I have, I don't want to get rid of.
No.
Ever.
No.
I know some people like had loads of them that had like displays and everything, and then just one day they just got rid of them.
Yeah.
So although they're not my favorite, I don't think I'd get rid of them because, especially like my Don't Starve ones and stuff like that. And your, where are yours, by the way? I'm looking
They're
around this room and I don't see them in any of the boxes.
They're in a box in the cupboard.
Oh, okay. Probably above my wardrobe.
Yeah, I think they're all with the whatever they were called, the statues that I got as well, the busts.
Oh, the bust. Yeah, I liked those.
I don't have storage space.
Not
like display. I don't have display space for those. So.
I said past tense. It's not that I liked them. I like those busts.
Yes. Okay, so next comment we have Jack Tomer. Hey Jack, how you doing?
Hi, Jack.
I've definitely paid way too much to collect the DC collectibles second hand. There's quite a few I did have when they were originally sold, but since I was a jobless high schooler when they were coming out, I mostly had to settle for the ones I got for my birthday and Christmas.
So here's the thing. I don't know. I might have mentioned this before, but I am on a mission in my life, and I think I started this last year, where I am buying the things in my past that I couldn't afford because it makes me happy. And I also have a husband that does that too, which is awesome. But I totally relate to being like a broke high schooler, and there's so many things that I wanted when I was a kid, but obviously growing up with a modest income family, I didn't get those, but I'm slowly but surely getting the things I want now. Allegedly.
Jack continues by saying, I can't really get into the McFarlane BTAS figures. Not only do I have most of the characters from the DC collectibles released, but something with the sculpts and especially with the paint job makes them look cheaper to me. I have other issues with how they've handled the DC brand as a whole in terms of both what characters they choose to release and the way they release them, which can make getting some characters practically impossible. This is why I own a lot more Marvel Legends, despite being more of a DC guy. Well, yeah, I mentioned in the last episode that I know someone that got the new Batman Adventures Two-Face, and the paint job on the Two-Face side was terrible, so he sent it back. Someone else I follow, I don't know him personally, but I follow him on Instagram, got his new Batman Adventures Two-Face this week, and it looked much better than the original one I saw, so perhaps there were quality control issues there. My set is actually... the order is now in the processing state, so hopefully I'll get those within the next week. Okay, next we have D. Fuxa. How are you going to handle anti-villains, anti-heroes? Yes to Static Shock Zeta. Well, you found out when I talked about Amanda Waller, didn't you? We treated them as villains.
Yeah, so I think you know that Taylor Swift song, Hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. It should be, Hi, I'm Amanda Waller. Hi, I'm Amanda Waller, the problem is me.
Yeah. I only know that song because you listen to it in the car.
Yeah. No, I hope we did it well.
Well, if we didn't, they'll let us know.
Yeah, please do.
They're probably shouting at the recording now, going, "You fools!"
You beep, 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 beep.
No, they wouldn't beep.
Hey, our next one's from Big Mikey P.
Yes, Michael Andre Parlon. I'm not that into action figures and dolls, however, will still watch for the channel support and for the occasional tidbits of stuff I'm interested with. Thank you, that's very kind of you.
Thank you.
Would want to watch X-Men 97, but since I failed to catch up with the preceding X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man the Animated Series for reasons like apathy, there's a very good reason why for any You Can Only Save One Show poll that features it and Spider-Man, and any of the DCAU, I'm more likely to end up saving one of the latter. Plus being way too busy with other older animated shows, anime mostly due to current Western animation having a dry spell, if you know what I mean. I'm afraid I'm just going to let it slide for now. Well, you do you.
What did you sigh?
Because X-Men 97 is very good.
Oh, it is very good. But I can see where you're coming from though, because I don't watch anime. I don't think I've ever really watched anime. I know of some of them. It's just my thing about anime is that there are animes that I could start watching, but because they are so long and there are so many parts to them, I'll never get through it. But I kind of agree with you with the dry spell with the Western animation in a way, except for X-Men 97 because that has been really great.
You haven't watched Invincible, have you, Mary? I have, and Invincible's very good. I have high hopes.
I have not watched Invincible.
I have high hopes for Cape Crusader as well. I was talking with colleagues at work about shows that we watch because they were looking for recommendations, and I realised that I've only been watching cartoons recently.
Well, the thing is, that's why I said right now it's going through that. But also, I am not the biggest fan of... Like, I'll watch old episodes of American Dad or, like, Family Guy just for... It's kind of like a soothing thing for me before I go to sleep because it's not Law and Order SVU and it's not something super deep. It means absolutely nothing to watch those shows sometimes because you've seen them so many of the episodes so many times and you could just like numb yourself to it. But some of the stuff that's come out, I am just not interested in, or like most things, I'll be interested in it in about 5 years.
So continuing the comment, got a light Nightcrawler there though, as far as memories of my younger days can say. Times have changed merchandising companies. Nowadays one could and should expect men and women respectively being proud of having stylish Kim Possible and manly JoJo's Bizarre Adventure memorabilia. If I have to nudge folks for my incoming birthdays, I'd rather recommend and give written lists of novels, novellas and comic books, and for every literary thing finally acquired, they should be crossed out. Therefore, I can defo relate with Luke. Good and grudging to know that the villain figures are almost always sold out. Ugh. being given Batman Forever figures is like being given Star Wars Legends Denningverse novels. Those are disserviceable travesty to the holy lore, those books. I think toys nowadays are deemed weak because they are not of die-cast constructions. It's a lost art, said one Optimus Primal. Also, the 21st century fallout of societal disillusionment and grimness wrought by the war on terror and the Lehman Brothers crash. As a ranting aside, I don't mind the Funko Pops. Soon I bet they'll be redeemed in historical value, while harmful fads like TikTok will be deservedly demonized like leaded makeup centuries ago. Guess you need to play Unpacked, Mary.
How dare you say that leaded makeup was harmful? How dare you? Some of us still... No, I'm joking. Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
I don't complain about high prices even in books. Even my treasured personal copy of A Christmas Carol novella was, $20 more expensive than it should have been, and yet I still bought it out of an absolute necessity need to support the stuff and not fall into the tiresome necessary evil of sailing the seven seas. Guess I was raised well in a financial Spartan manner.
I love supporting, like... Okay, so there's this thing, since you're talking about, like, A Christmas Carol and stuff, there is the Penguin Classics. They came out with this entire range of new covers, and I love them, and I'm starting to collect them. Some of them are, like, 11 pounds, right? But some of them, because they're rarer than others, can go for, like, 100 quid. I'm still gonna buy it because I want to support things like that, and the artist behind it is wonderful. So yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind giving my money to support a good cause, like an artist, and just my overall wanting things to be pretty.
Oh, now you guys are denying the audaciousness that is Eric Roberts. Never, never. I guess I mentioned earlier. Stop it. Guess I mentioned early for this video, in a nutshell, Pretty Woman and the original Ocean's 11 are equal in quality, but they don't hold a memorable candle to the remake of the latter. Appreciate the thought of having a watch party even when unlikely, Mary. Also appreciate recommending back to Law and Order SVU, but a Makoto Shinkai anime film, the latter. Not your average romance flick, that. Anywho, I really am serious in expecting that camp featuring Eric Roberts was a One Stormy Night, an animated film featuring sheep and wolves if you're curious at first glance. Appreciate the long-form comment words, y'all.
Y'all.
Luke, didn't your wife once suggest that she prefers anime to be subbed and dubbed once? Heh heh. I was expecting you to be quite well versed on the stuff because of her know-how. Oh dear, don't tell me I ignorantly typoed. Ojamanjo. No, I just can't speak. I didn't even say that properly.
I never, ever said that I liked dubbed movies. I said subtitled movies. But here's the thing about me. This is one of the biggest pet peeves that I have with movies or foreign movies. I hate when the Western countries, like, dub them. Like, I want to read the subtitles. I want to hear the language that it's from because I like, there was a Spanish movie that's on Netflix about an airplane that crashed. And I love the fact that they actually, the survivors were Spanish. So let them speak Spanish. Don't give me some American person speaking over them. That's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming. But no, subtitles I do because I'm neurodivergent, and sometimes I can hear something, but if I read it at the same time, I understand it a lot more.
Oh, and you're welcome, Mary, for becoming serendipitously exposed to certain works because of my otherwise confusing mentions and recommendations, and will expect to see more as of this writing. The cake is a lie is still a more fonder meme than, arrow in the knee. I think it's arrow to the knee. I'm being a pedant, I'm sorry.
Where's that one from?
It's from Skyrim.
Oh.
I never finished Skyrim, by the way. Never, couldn't be bothered. I've got it like 3 times. Anyway, that's indicative of a problem with me, not anything else. I'll never understand why people still love bloody Skyrim when The Witcher 3 and Pillars of Eternity are more nuanced, if not approachable, and less buggy. Go ahead, I can neither not recommend nor recommend them, so go on your own terms. For the former, it's a recurring code for immersive games like Thief 1 and 2, System Shock 2 and 1 Remake, Deus Ex Dishonored 1 and 2, and Prey 2017. I'm a sucker for those types of games, truth be told. I sure was a bit madcap on alluding the Japanese visual novel Kyoto animation adaptation there. I'm a sucker for those two at intervals. Again, any chance the comments from here can be mentioned for an addendum totally Schway vid after this. I mean, if Mary wants to do it, Mary's welcome to do it. For the conclusion, can recommend Static Shock, though with the removal of Hoop Squad. No, you have to watch Hoop Squad. It's gloriously bad.
Is it about basketball?
It is basketball playing superheroes.
Oh, God.
And they're actually real basketball stars.
Oh, really?
I said basketball really weird. Basketball!
Yeah. So I grew up watching my stepfather play basketball with some of his friends in a city park. So I know a lot about basketball. Mm-hmm. Can't say that I love it.
No.
But I will watch it, definitely.
Yeah, you're not going to miss Hoop Squad. I'll make you watch it. But to finish off, Big Mikey P's comment, where was I? Since I think there'll be moments that will make you think you should have wasted time that should have been afforded for Justice League and Unlimited or some other show you know and love. Skip the Zeta Project, though. It doesn't matter anywhere else in the DCAU. Oh, and Amanda Waller better not be branded as a villain.
Oh, no!
She's many things wrong, but a horrid monster like Darkseid or the Joker she ain't.
Oh, no.
Tell that to Warren McGuinness's balls.
You need to cut that out. Yes, you are. You're cutting that out.
I'm not cutting that out.
Yes, you are.
I'm not.
Yes, you are.
That's going to get a good laugh from anyone that listens.
Amanda Waller, in my opinion, and my opinion only, is somewhat of a villain.
We already talked about this.
I know.
They know.
Thank you, Mikey.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Big Mikey P.
I'm expecting next week's comment to be full of, how dare you, Amanda Waller's a saint. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to Captain Al's. Captain Al, how are you doing? I'm not a big toy collector, but I was thinking about the Darkseid comment, standing with his hands behind his back. I actually think a highly articulated figure would be delightful. The arms would need to be incredible, with fancy shoulders, biceps, elbows, and individual fingers for all his dramatic gestures. His stoic trademark, yes, but also a raised fist, an upward palm with curling fingers, or a dramatic point. The interchangeable faces with different scowls and sadistic smiles, some with flaming eyes. And interlocking omega beams in various shapes for dynamic death rays. But the best part of this thought experiment for me is how the company would inevitably have to save money on that fancy upper body articulation by completely cutting everything below the waist. Darkseid almost exclusively stands still. He doesn't need leg joints, just a bust-on a leg-shaped base. That'd be hilarious. The Phantasm.
Hey, Phantasm.
I always love the opportunity to talk about my favourite comic book villain of all time, which is Lex Luthor, although Doctor Doom is a close second for me. Luckily for me, the DCAU Lex Luthor is my absolute favourite adaptation of the character. Yes, I know you will talk about 3 villains each, but we did 5. I know I diverged from what I'd said earlier. But truth is, I just don't have the energy to write about more than one. Before I continue, I'd like to note that I usually prefer the post-crisis origin for Lex, where he and Clark didn't know each other beforehand, but I still see the appeal and why some like it, and be sure to tell me what your personal preference is. I prefer Lex Luthor to have not grown up in Smallville.
Agreed.
When it comes to the DCAU Lex Luthor, talk about exuding smug bastard energy, which is brilliantly showcased by Clancy Brown's incredibly charismatic performance. A primary reason why he is my absolute favourite villain is because, in a lot of ways, he's already won. He conquered the world. Before Superman arrived, Lex's word was all but law, his every idle thought and passing fancy a reality, his every desire practically command. There was nothing he couldn't do. Before Superman arrived, Lex Luthor was the smartest, most powerful man on Earth, or so he told himself. And then Superman arrived. Just by existing, Superman frees the world from Luthor's ever-growing mass manipulation. Because he's incorruptible, because he can't be bought, because he holds Lex accountable for his actions, Superman allows people to tell Lex no. They have someone to protect them from his power. That gives Lex a core of motivation which makes his actions easy to explain, but impossible to excuse. He hates Superman because he believes Superman took the world away from him. I briefly mentioned this earlier, but really enough praise can't be given to Clancy Brown for the defining performance he gave, and to me he is the definitive Lex Luthor. Although please let me know what you thought of Michael Rosenbaum's Luthor, because I hear great things, but I haven't watched much of Smallville. Neither have I. Couldn't really get past it being Dawson's Creek with Superman.
Here's my thoughts, okay? Haven't watched it, but I think he's great.
I absolutely love that even though Lex is really the opposite of Superman, meaning he's arrogant, hateful and cruel, and when confronted with the suffering of others he can be borderline indifferent to it, yet despite that you just love seeing him chew scenery. His voice radiates such an amount of gravitas that whenever he speaks, for some reason you are compelled to hang on his every word, even though most of them more than likely will be about how much inferior you are to him. Nowhere in my opinion is that more evident than what he says to the question, "President, do you know how much power I'd have to give up to be president?" That's right, conspiracy buff. I spent $75 million on a fake presidential campaign, all just to tick off Superman. And just to close off, I'd like to remind everyone of Lex saying, "Brainiac, I'm coming." It's in your head now. People just use that clip way too much.
I never thought about it, but I don't. Is it just me that I maybe I am the wholesome one out of our group.
Maybe.
Out of our totally Schway group. Maybe I'm the wholesome one. Now I'm going to hear it again the next time I watch it. I'm just going to giggle. Like a 7th grade child.
All right, last comment then. We have Screen Wiper.
Hey, Screen Wiper!
There's a couple of comments here, but I can condense it into one because they're short ones. Those commenters were so dumb, Jesus, everyone knows fascism is right-wing and that the Nazis only called themselves socialists to get elected, and that once they were elected, the socialists were the first people they rounded up and imprisoned because they wanted to disable the trade unions. At least that's stuff everyone should know. Another thing to know is you'll never understand socialism if you only consume what capitalists have to say about it, and liberal capitalism supporters do not count as the left. Luke's pronunciation of Llandudno has improved. That's good to hear.
That's the tone, isn't it?
Yes. Whatever I was referring to at 59 seconds and 20, I probably timestamped it, maybe. Also, my house is lovely. Cute dinosaurs live here.
Cute dinosaurs?
He's talking about his chickens.
I know. What should we talk about next time?
Well, Mary, seeing as I can't actually remember who decided this topic. I'm going to say I did, but I think you did. But you get to pick again.
It's magic.
Magic. What specifically about magic are we talking about?
The characters that have magical powers.
Okay, so characters like Zatanna, Etrigan the Demon, Morgan Le Fay,
Raj.
Shining Knight. Oh, I don't know if Ra's al Ghul, if you'd say he was magic.
That's more mythical.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll talk about it then, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Good. This has been a slightly longer podcast than usual because we spent way too long talking about the villains, but hopefully you didn't mind.
Yeah.
And if you did, then make sure you let us know in the comments.
Okay. I love you guys. Have a really great week. And if you don't, well, guess what? You can always tell me about it in the comments.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.